Totally.
I think great art makes you feel not alone.
Mm.
In general, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think as a thing, like when you see something and you connect with
resonate
it,
with that.
yeah, because you're physically connecting with something.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
once you create something and someone connects with it, it's like you realize all of a sudden it's like, oh, if someone made this and it's resonating with me, that means there must be something similar going on, you know, in them, even if it's a completely unconscious kind of thing, do you know?
Yeah.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of Press and Fun to Continue. My name is Keith, the boy who was streaming before it was cool with a CRT, a GameCube, and a copy of Resi 4 and a mini-tape camcorder, balancing on a 16 issues of my mother's juicy gossip National Enquirer magazine. I'm joined by my co-host Nisha, a renowned retro game enthusiast who's been capturing the nation's nostalgic hearts through his photography and now the attentive ears of the listeners of this podcast. That's right, today we'll be looking back at what drives us to create, where does the passion come from, and what keeps us going. Whether it's a love of retro or modern gaming, or maybe you're just really obsessed with making a teeny tiny little clay willies, we are accepting all of the creative processes here. What is that? So important to us as humans that must embody our passions and love into some form of tangible content. There is a 10% chance that you'll find out today on Press Any Button to Continue. Next time on Dragon Ball Z, will Vegeta get his cock out and make sure he sucks all Nappa's dick, or will Nappa come inside the creams? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Tell me this, right, before we get into our content creation, who do you think is the hottest character in Dragon Ball?
Oh, Jesus. I was going to make like a joke answer there, but it was like, I think, oh geez, probably realistically Bulma. Like, I mean, there's different phases of Bulma, there's different haircuts, but I think I'm trying to think. Like, all I can think of in my head is Chi-Chi and Bulma.
Oh yeah, yeah. The way you did
I'm just fucking sniffing. I'm sniffing. I can smell their arses from here. What am I thinking now? Dragon Ball is one of the most animes go crazy in the horny factor. Like, it's usually big busty anime babes, you know, big busty
big
buttery
big biscuit.
Buttery
What was the
butter
thing?
fuck
Butterfuck.
butterfuck busty bust. It's they usually go busty booby boobs, but Dragon Ball is fairly tame.
Right.
Yeah.
Just in a general, like, you know, who.
I'm gonna say Bulma, man. I mean, like, you know, there's different categories of Bulma. Some of the haircuts are awful, but some of them rock and roll. Like Namek Bulma wouldn't be my favorite, but you know, there's some good ones in there.
Now, I only know up to what am I on, the Frieza saga?
You're on
you're on the
Namek saga, and then it goes to the Frieza saga, kind of.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you know what? That's funny, because I was actually thinking that they're like, I'm halfway through season 2, and I feel like there's not a lot of episodes of season 2, and not as much as season 1. There's only like 30 something episodes in the second saga, so I was like, maybe they're blitzing through this too quick. But anyway, we're talking about something different. Sorry, you just mentioned Dragon Ball, and
you get excited, man.
Enthralled in Dragon Ball at the moment that I just had to go into it. I think, can I just say that I genuinely think, like, Goku's like innocent niceness, but the fact that he's shredded and fucking rock hard, and his hair, man, I just think he's fucking hot to trot. Like,
so,
you know
safe
what I mean?
to say Goku is the one you would like.
I just appreciate him for his goodness.
You're appreciating. You're like, you know,
hardness.
it's one of those things. It's like, it's not gay if I want his cock in my mouth. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's, you know, I mean, I'm just celebrating Pride Month. You know what I mean? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you know, I just want to feel his balls. You know what I mean? I just want to feel his shredded abs,
his Dragon Balls.
I want to smell him, and I just want to be next to him. I mean, it's not gay, is it? It might be a little gay. I don't know. I mean, I might be gay. This was a bit I was doing literally just on stream, where we kept saying stuff like, I mean, it's not gay just to kiss your homies, like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just want to know what they smell and taste like, you know?
Jesus Christ.
Right. If it's on the weekends and Christmas and holidays, it's fine, you know what I mean?
Any day that ends in Y, man. It's all good. Doesn't matter. So
what a start to a podcast. I love it. Hit me, man.
Today we're talking about content creation, why we make podcasts, why we stream, why we take videos, why we create stuff, be it music, art, anything, just the creative process of whatever we enjoy, and what is it that drives us to create, what is it that we enjoy about it, what maybe we don't enjoy about it, and all the kind of aspects of it. Because initially we were going to do a GameCube episode, and we just kind of got the feeling that, or I don't know, did I suggest it, or it's like, but I just had it in my head. It was like, I think it would be a cool episode to do, considering the big, kick coming into the streaming platform at the moment. And, there's loads of people, like we had our 1 year anniversary of our podcast, and there's new podcasts coming out all the time, us being one of the relatively new ones, even though we're a year old. And just the whole thing, we've both been at it for years and years and years, and I just think it's an interesting subject to talk about, and a little bit different to our nostalgic stories and our retro gaming stories. And even though our podcast is mainly retro focused, I just think it'd be nice to kind of peel the curtain back a little bit and talk about what kind of goes on in our heads and what we love about it. So I think maybe, like, if you're okay, I'll start by just asking you, because I've done my Instagram thing for years, and it's, the thing I've enjoyed the most is this podcast, but you have been doing content creation properly and professionally as a job for years now.
I never even thought of it as a profession.
But that's what. Well,
Yeah.
I'd consider you to be doing it professionally, because it's your job, it's your career at the moment.
Yeah, no. Like, I would agree. It's just interesting, I guess, when you hear things phrased like that, right? It's like,
Right.
like, as in, not that I disagree, but it's just like interesting hearing those words around it.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the intro there that you were actually creating like videos of Let's Play videos yourself and Richard.
Yeah.
We're creating Let's Plays years ago on a CRT TV and a little handheld VHS camera.
It was like a mini tape camcorder, so they were like tiny little tapes. They almost looked like cassette tapes, but they were like a little smaller and chunkier in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know them. Yeah, I know them.
Yeah. And it had its own little mechanical opening shell to put the tapes into.
Cool.
But yeah.
And how did that come about?
So like, because obviously, like, I think I always had this idea of video games that I just wasn't playing them. I was like being part of them, right? So it was like there was this passion of like, I want to collect them, I want to display them. I was like cleaning my consoles. I saw them all as pieces of art long before I ever should have, I'd say. So I was always kind of like obsessed in not just the playing of them, but like the art around them, like the creation of them themselves inspired me so much that I wanted to create something around them. Do you know what I mean? So and it was like, totally. So there was also the aspect as well of like, just to kind of teleport to the present day, whereas like there's always this drive to like, there's a skill set that I found very difficult to like, use in day-to-day society, right? So I remember I was going to like therapy, and I was like I'd be like frustrated by the fact that like, I feel like I have these skills to kind of, talk and entertain a little bit, or, play music, and, I have a passion for video games, but like, how the fuck am I going to like use these things? Because it's like, there's a lot of like, are you an accountant or are you a doctor kind of thing, like depends on where you grew up and where you live, different things are valued. But at a young age, I think it was just purely like, we want to create something around it because we're so passionate about it. It's like, so we had the idea of like Arcade Consoles, which is Richard and Keith, and it had its own like theme song. We used to get sheets and would write down our plans, and he'd review one game and I'd review the other. But but the camera was based around doing a Let's Play of Resident Evil 4. And I remember like we're trying to close out the curtains because the light was shining on the TV so much, and we were trying to set it up and balance it under loads of books on top of a tripod, and then you could just hear the two of us. Like when we were that age, I think we were about 12. Like our voices hadn't broke yet, and like we thought we sounded so different, but we're just like, hey, it's like, I'm fucking breaking things, like I shoot him and Tina Turner's dead. We were literally the Tina Turner. We were literally the Tina Turner as Dead Paperboy, the two of us as well. Like that's what we sounded like.
And were you on camera, or was your camera?
So
the camera was
pointing
footage.
So the camera was pointing at the TV, and we'd be like behind it, so we'd be recording the show of it. And I still have some of the tapes, like
cool, man.
And it was just like, so we did that, and we were recording even stuff like radio shows on an MP3 player. There was definitely just such a desire to somehow like have I don't know, it's just I always had in my head like I wanted a show. like I so badly, like in my head as a kid, wanted to have like a show about something I was passionate about, and that like people could like enjoy, you know. And I think then as I got older, like I did, 10 years of college, 2 master's degree, trained to be a therapist, the whole lot, and enjoy that aspect as well. But it was the need for me to create about something I love and enjoy, in the same way the podcast is created out of the love and joy for nostalgia and retro games. Like that need and desire was coming from like an actual like basic human need that I needed to do it. It was like it's like eating, it's like whatever else it is. It's like for me to be happy in my life. And it's been very proven to me, because it's obviously a big risk to try and make content. Do you know what I mean? Particularly as a job, huge risk. Yeah. And it comes with like, you have to have a lot of backup plans, and it has to, generally I think it has to start as a hobby. I don't think it's ever a good idea to be like, day one, my first day trying to express my love of something, I'm going to try and monetize it, because it's like, agree. That's a slippy slope to like mixing up your love for something and trying to, so I think that's where it all came together. And throughout the years, like my love of video games is always there. Kind of would have like fell off my early 20s in the party years for a bit, and then would have came back strong. And I always kind of say that my 30s for me are like being 13 again. It's like, I've kind of gone through, I think the 20s were such years of going through like all different things of finding yourself and figuring yourself out, and then I feel like your 30s you kind of almost get to be a kid again and kind of like really enjoy what you're going back to basics a little bit, you're taking away all the frills of what you think you need in life, and you're going back to your passions. And the same way with this podcast and us and how we started it, I think there's that basic need for it. There was always the passion for video games more than just playing them. It's everything around them, and then combining that together was kind of the focal point of like why I need it and why I want to do it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's interesting. I love the fact that you're talking about being creative is something that makes you happy, and something that's only twigged with me now is that with regards to your therapy practice, you're an art therapist, and I'm only after clicking the creative thing and art therapy, and it's clearly that important to you. If you spent 10 years. Did 2 master's degrees and became an art therapist. Sure. Like it literally only twigged with me there, even though we've talked about this loads of times, that's it's all part of, it shows your love of creativity and art in all forms. So that's just something that twigged me there. I think I'm trying to think of what did I do when I was a kid. I never thought of creating a TV show. Can
I ask though, when you were playing games growing up, did you have an outside brain of like, outside of playing them, did they consume your world?
Yeah, so I can remember drawing pictures. I used to draw my own levels of Super Mario Bros. And it was specifically the one on the NES, so that's how young I was. I can remember drawing out the levels of Super Mario Bros, making my own levels, and then just going along with the pencil and like jumping as if I had a character going along the levels. And I can remember I used to draw Sonic the Hedgehog all the time, and I could never quite get him right.
Yeah, you were saying that in the last episode.
I mentioned that. Yeah, like it was like the spikes on his back. I used to always get real pissed off because I couldn't get them right. But yeah, I was big into drawing when I was a kid. I used to love drawing.
It's funny how there is the love of drawing of a kid when you're a kid, right? Because it's like those things are actually taught out of you, which is terrible.
True.
A lot of the times, right? So it's like, it's so funny though that when you talk about it, it's like, oh, I'm so obsessed with this that I actually have to draw it, because everyone did that. I used to draw Dragon Ball all the time, constantly. Like I can draw Dragon Ball really well because I did it all the time as a kid. I'll actually show you. I might have an art book there of some of my old drawings as a kid.
Deadly, yeah.
But you're so obsessed with something that you have to draw it out. To like stop, like you're so overwhelmed by the want of it and the need to play it and to experience it that you're actually trying to simulate it and draw it. Like that's the same thing with like art therapy in a way. When you're feeling something so much, you need to tangibilize it. You need to like physically form it into something. Do you know what I mean? And then when you're looking at it, like it kind of dissipates. Do you know what I mean? Like you're getting that feeling out of there. So I genuinely, like, firmly, like, in art therapy training, there's like the need to create and express is fundamental to your mental health. Like, and people don't realize maybe when they are creating, but like there's, the way to access your unconscious is to create. Do you know what I mean? The way to build a bridge between your conscious and your unconscious is to create. Now, it doesn't always have to be like a revelation of anything. You can specifically kind of try and gear it towards that, and it can be helpful. But there's just something in the trying to express your love for something by creating. Do you know?
Yeah, totally. And man, do you know what has just twigged me again here when you were saying it's like everyone has it on some form or some level, and it mightn't necessarily be drawing a picture or painting a painting or something like that. Like simply the act of picking out an outfit, picking out your clothes, you're designing what you're going to wear, like,
and you're expressing yourself physically by picking what you put on yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the posters you put on your wall, the pictures you hang in your house,
the creations in Minecraft, the creations in building games. Do you know, like.
But I'm thinking of, so maybe people who aren't into video games, they're not into music, they're not into painting or drawing, you know, they might have their own thing, whatever it is, but not the typical creative outlets that one might think of when you think of the arts.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
It's interesting because it has just twigged me now that, like I said, something as simple as picking out your outfit. Those jeans are going to go well with that top. I'm going to put those runners with those socks. You know what I mean?
And it's more than just looking at what goes at what. It's like what feels right on me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're going from that point of view as well.
Yeah. I know it's not gaming related or content related, but it's just as a
creative
creative thing.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, and it has only twigged me now for the first time. But I remember I like drawing. I remember I used to watch Games Master, you know, the TV show Games Master.
Yeah, we have a secret recorded episode of it, of the two of us together reacting to one.
We should put that out, actually.
We should put it on the Patreon.
Yeah, we should, man.
Just for the sake of it.
Patreon.com/Steamy_streamers.
So Steamy Streamers, sorry, Patreon.com/Presley. My brain, man, is so rotted. I just did like an 8-hour stream there.
Oh, man. That's crazy. But yeah, I used to love Games Master, and I used to always want to do something within video games, but I never had any clue what that was. You know, I didn't know how to make video games. I didn't know anything about coding. I didn't know how to get in, where to start, what to do. But I just loved video games.
What was in your head, like, if you wanted to do something with video games? What would have been the dream?
Man, I know what it is, because it was a rumor back in the day that people had this job, and it was the best job ever and the easiest job ever, and you got loads of money and you got free video games, and it was a video game tester.
Well, I mean, it's a real job.
Yeah, but what in my child brain, the simplest forms is you don't need any qualifications, you don't need any experience. You just, a company sits you down, pays you loads of money, you play a game, and you're like, I like that. I didn't like that, and like that's what I had it again in my child brain.
It's not entirely untrue. Like they're
I'd say it's a bit more.
There is elements of that, right? Like where it's like the problem is it's a lot fucking harder than you think. It's like, here's a really shit level, play it 69 million times in a day. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's that elements of it, that would be just like fucking soul destroying in its own way. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm playing Sonic 2006 at the moment, and that is like, oh my, it's like the Room, you know the movie The Room.
I do know.
You know, it's like that in a video game. It's like, it's so terrible, it's a masterpiece. Do you know what I mean? It's so broken and so unfinished. It's a masterpiece.
Oh, brilliant.
The frame rate is tied to the engine of the game, so when the frame rate lowers, the game literally goes in slow motion, and this happens about every 20 seconds.
No way. I'm gonna have to play it. Like, I played it on the Xbox 360.
I guarantee you won't be able to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because now I'm like, I have to try it. Like,
oh, I mean, I want you to, but I guarantee you'll be like, after you have to find 6 kids in a grey city, and there's 14 loading screens that last 20 minutes per time you do it, and then you lose 6 times in a row. Like, the real benefit for me is I'm making content while I'm doing it, so it's magnificent. But if you're using your free time, I want you to, but if you realize you came home from work and all you saw was loading screens for 2 hours before you went to bed, it might make you a bit like,
right.
I
get you. Still, I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I do think if we did an episode called Now Loading Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, like it would probably be pretty successful, because that game is just notorious. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm gonna pencil that in. That's in the book.
Scratchy.
Yeah, hold on, you ready?
Rate 5 stars. We're on 91 5 stars. We need 9 more. What the fuck are you doing?
Fucking 9 more stars.
Just fucking rate. If you're listening to this episode now, just rate it now, because why not? Like, do you hate this episode?
Bastards.
I need attention right now. Lick my bum. Lick my bum.
You said that you just came off 8 hours streaming.
Well, it was 10 till 7. That's probably more, but there was an hour of break in between. So I was doing Kick, I was doing Twitch, and then I ended on Kick again.
So look, I said earlier on that you are a professional streamer. It's your job. It's what you do as a
Well, I
career.
put enough time and hours into it. I guess there's got to be a time where you
come
put
on,
in
just
X
take
amount of hours.
Yeah,
No, I am taking it. That's what I mean.
All right.
I'm taking that dick. I'm popping off a piece of my dick. I put on erection selection. I'm gonna sticks my dicksins. I'm gonna sticks. I'm fixins to fucksies.
Fucking love Paul Rudd, man. The current thing at the moment a big topic at the moment is streaming platforms, and Twitch is obviously the head honcho.
Twitch is the monopoly,
Twitch. Yeah, and now Kick has come in and they've started signing up some really big streamers, and they're offering a different payout. Now, I am a Twitch. I have very basic knowledge. You know, most of it I've learned through talking to you and what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you think about it at the moment? Like, what are your thoughts on it? So you've streamed primarily on Twitch for the last 5 years?
Yeah, like I'd say like technically 5 years consistently, like 3.5. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would have done a few streams here and there the time before, but never had any schedule or whatever.
Right.
You know.
Right. Now Kick has come along.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the likes of Facebook, there's YouTube,
TikTok lives is probably kind of
TikTok, yeah.
TikTok does a live kind of thing as well, yeah.
Right. What are your thoughts on? It doesn't have to be a specific one, but just I suppose the streaming scene at the moment. Talking about platforms, not necessarily content creators and streamers, but what do you think is the crack with the platforms at the moment? What's going on? What do you think about the future?
It's interesting because like being on Twitch as long as I have, it's just, you know, it's made so many rough decisions recently. It's been very like kind of anti-creator, which is kind of causing a bit of a rebellion and an uproar within the community because I mean, if anyone doesn't know, right, so for my job, like, you know, it's like Twitch first of all takes half my money straight up, so it's like 50%, so whatever viewers give in subs or bits, half of that's gone straight away. So like that's always an insane kind of greed in it, and it depending on how your stuff works, you might be taxed in America and then you might also be taxed here, so it depends. You're supposed to put in your like PPS number, which is supposed to be how that works with it. So I mean, when you're doing something that's a hobby, it's great, it's a little bit extra change, but once you really realize how much money people are trying to support you and give you because they enjoy what they're watching and they're placing a value on what they're watching, and how much all their money is going to Amazon, one of the richest companies in the world, it starts to feel a little bit, you know. Now, that was always the way. Yeah. You sign your contract, you sign up for it, you choose your job, you choose your work, and I look at that. The 50% is like paying your rent to a landlord for a business where you're self-employed. It's a lot. True. It's too much by far, but it's, you know, you sign up, you do it, you can't complain too much about it. But look, obviously as the landscape has developed and things have moved on, you know, they're trying all different ways of taking things. They're trying to, you know, it's a case before there used to be potential 70-30 split for partners. Some of them if they were making money, but that was a secret and they had individual contracts. Some had, some didn't. Then it came out they did, and then they took that away, and now they're reintroducing it. Be like, look at us, we're introducing this like it's the first time. Yeah,
but it only suits about a fucking couple of thousand.
Yeah,
people,
like it's
only
almost
up to 100.
Yeah, there's a new thing. It's like you have to have 350 individual subs, which most people's subs come from gift subs. So like, you know, a single person might give 5 or 10 or whatever.
Can I just ask, is an individual sub somebody who is just like every month it renews?
Yes. Right. So you need to have 350 of them continuously.
It doesn't matter about
3 months.
Gift subs.
No, they take the gift subs don't matter, Prime subs don't matter.
Fuck. What's a Prime sub? Sorry,
Prime sub is where you're subscribed to Amazon Prime, so you get a free use of a sub to someone.
Right,
that and etc.
Right. So and sorry, can I just ask one more question? Sorry, I don't want to derail you too much. If someone pays for Amazon Prime and they sub to you, do you still to Amazon Prime? Amazon still give you the sub money?
They do give you the sub money, yeah.
Right.
They do.
I'm just curious. It's
kind of like Amazon sucking their own dick, though, because it's like, well, you're sub to Amazon, and then we'll take half a sub revenue.
It's not. No, I get it. Yeah.
So then, like, the lawless land of Kick was born, and a lot of people are unhappy with the way I look at this. Right, it's like a new country comes out of nowhere. There's no laws yet, it's establishing, but the country has a good government and has a good economy, right? So because they do a 95% split, so like that's radical change. Do you know what I mean? So obviously, let's say all the criminals are going to run over there to begin with, because you know the laws haven't been established and it's new and the whole thing's setting up. So obviously that set a bad precedence on the face of it. But, you know, as time goes on, they've clamped down and clamped down. It's only been around for a few months. Like, it's still very new. Arguably has done far more in far shorter time than Twitch does when Twitch first started existing.
Yeah.
They have more. Now, again, they have basically used the blueprint of the website to copy over to it. But, so, you know, there's a lot of mixed feelings because there was a lot of dickheads on the face of it who were, you know, kind of basically running free, which thankfully has kind of cut down now. But, you know, it's like the big thing we're looking at here is Twitch cannot be a monopoly, right? People need to understand that you're going to go into the business of content creating and you have to use a platform. There being only one platform is going to be the most anti-creator thing you can have, and it's going to fuck you over and you're going to end up with no money.
Yeah.
Like, whether you like Love Kick, Hate Kick, or any of them else, you have to fucking have it. You should not wish it away no matter what. Yeah. Because you're going to be abused otherwise. You're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to have no rights. You're going to have no say. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing to do. So you need that to survive. And as that country, you know, and I also firmly believe, like, bring good people over there. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want to, you know, I mean, the more people that populate it and give their feedback back, you know, you can take control of not being monopoly. Like, recently for me, I ended up I used to have a weekly sub goal to do an extra day, and I've changed that into donations instead because I'm just sick of fucking Amazon taking the money, do you know? It was really stressful. And, like, I felt like, you know, you have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to complain to. It's just like, here, they're literally just stealing half your shit. Yeah. So it's like, you know, changing it to that really felt like releasing the shackles of it and feeling more free to make the content I want to make now. But that only came after like building a community for so long and them suggesting the ideas and being really, really supportive, do you know?
Yeah, you do have a really fantastic community.
I do.
They're so nice.
I got ride or dies, you know.
But I remember even, man. So before me and you even like talked to each other, before me and you became friends, had the podcast, we just followed each other online. We had the odd interaction, but there was never like full conversation. So we weren't friends, and we didn't we communicated a little bit. So as an outsider, I came into that community, and it was the first time I ever watched a streamer. And when I came into the stream and I started talking, other people in the stream started talking to me, saying, hello, welcome in. And it was the first time I ever experienced that. And I was like, what the everyone's so fucking nice here. Like, everyone's so cool. Mary, Delta, Gingy, Teapots, Miss Hatzer, all of them. Like, there's so many people in that group. And, like, I was like, fuck, this is so nice, man. This is so nice. There's so many cool people. They were all being really inviting. They were all being really friendly. And it was my first experience to it. And they're there all the time. They're so cool. They're so supportive. And it's just really nice to see, man. It's really, I've never had that.
It's great. And I think, like, I love that. And I love that that's, like, the experience you had with it too, because that's something you're making and you're building, and then that has a positive effect on someone else. And, you know, if you're bringing, I always say, like, the things like, how we all doing, how we all slaying, you know, like, bring levity to your brevity, you know, like, if it puts a fucking smile on your face, the whole lot. But it's like, I also firmly believe, right, if you're, and this is a big thing about creating, right, so if you're super passionate about something and you're rating it, like when we go nerding out about something, you and me on the podcast, right, that's like an infectious joy, right, that passes on to someone else. And also when you're being an authentic version of yourself, nerding out or being super passionate about something, you tend to draw in similar people, right?
True.
You're not going to, like, of course you get the odd asshole. Like, so I think someone came in here is like, you're a fucking moron or something, you know, some random shit that people come in. But that's just literally trolling. And like you surround yourself then with those people, and then you're getting like that positive reflection back from people who are receiving your joy, and you're getting it back, and it's like a symbiotic relationship of like, I'm nerding out about this, and then you're nerding out about it, and then it's like, and then you draw that same, so you like surround yourself with the type of people that you want to be, and so on, and then that creates that space that when you come in, everyone's like, hey, how are you getting on? It's so nice to meet you, you know, and you get that positive kind of vibe back, and I think that's like so important, you know.
It is.
And I firmly realized through my experimentation and trying to figure out how to survive the landscape of content creation that, like, home is where your community is, it's not where your platform is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like, I was watching you on Kick today, and your community were there. I watch you on Twitch, your community.
Yeah, I'm very, very lucky that way. Do you know what I
mean? Your community even listens to this podcast and supports this podcast, which is fucking amazing. So it's really cool to see. And again, it was the first time that I ever seen that, you know, I ever experienced it as someone coming in and actually getting in on the conversation. I've always been quite happy just kind of sitting on the sidelines and watching, you know what I mean? Like, say I watch the YouTubers and stuff like that I enjoy. I'd see people in the comment section just having a conversation. I'd never have the kind of confidence to just jump in and be like, oh, I like this as well, even though if it was all supportive. And it wasn't until, I think it was during the community days, and we were playing like Mario Kart.
Sure.
And that was when it really kicked off, and it was, yeah, man, it's really fucking cool to see. It's a really nice thing to see. So I think you're totally right. It's all about your community as opposed to what platform the community is on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me as well, you got to realize that, like, for me, you know, at least with Steamy Streamers side of things, it's like, that's, the name is the community. It's not me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's,
oh my God. You just hit, like, I've never realized that before.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's the community name. It's not me. Do you know what I mean?
Oh shit, yeah. Holy shit, yeah, that's fucking wild, man. I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
that's
so it's
so
like,
interesting.
So, you know, it's like we're a Leviathan, right? It's like it's I'm not the show, we're the show.
That's,
you know?
Fucking class, man.
So
that's really cool. So tell me this, what, like, I don't know. No, you don't have to answer this question. We can say no, but
you just ask whatever you want. Yeah.
What is there anything good you can say about Twitch at the moment?
Yeah, like Twitch is like for me, would have been like a life-changing platform where I met all my friends. It's a great place to meet like-minded people from that point of view. Like, from the creative point of view, from the hobbyist point of view, it's a fantastic website, you know what I mean? Cool. Like, I mean, but there's no companies out there there's no such thing as a good company, really. That's at least a profitable one. Yeah. So, you know, but from an earning creator point of view, it's very anti-creator at the moment. You know, it's like they're not making it easy. Like, they were trying to bring in now that if your sponsors there has to be 3% size on the screen. They were basically trying to stop you making any outside money as possible, and that all had to be funneled through them no matter what. And the amount of backlash was just insane because they're already taking 50%. They're the only site that takes that much. So, you know, that's got to say something with it.
It'll be interesting to see, like, if, like, hopefully Twitch or Kick keeps thriving.
Yeah, hopefully it keeps improving itself, and hopefully it keeps, you know, making sure that, like, it does hold its space as accountable as well. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Because, like, do you know, obviously I think, and by the way, like, I'm still predominantly a Twitch streamer. Do you know what I mean? Like, just to make it, like, you know, that is still kind of my main platform. But it's just, you know, I think you have to put your eggs in different baskets, right? Because it's like, you have to think long term. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, can I realistically survive on this? When it's a hobby, doesn't matter. But I'm willing to, you know, turn it back into a hobby if needs be. There's no problem there. But obviously, ideally, it's a dream, and I'd love to chase the dream. And when you're doing something creative and you have a dream, you'll strive and you'll try and do what you can to keep it going. And I want to keep it going for me and the community too. I want us all to have a space we can hang out in. Do you know what I mean? So, like, to keep that space running, and to keep that space open, it's like a community center. You know, I'll open up the keys to the door and everyone gets to hang out there and use it. And it's just trying to keep that going. You know what I mean?
Cool. That's so nice, man. And tell me this: what was the? I realize this is like me interviewing you, but I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, 100%. We can call this whatever we want.
Yeah. But so what was it when you started streaming on Twitch? Yeah, and you were having a bit of fun, doing it intermittently, whatever, in the afternoons or whatever way you were doing it before. What was the catalyst for change, and that, or what was the kind, or was there a turning point where you were like, right, I'm going for it?
Yeah, like, there's different points where obviously I was getting such a kick out of it and such a high out of doing it, and particularly at the live content, there's a bit of a performing element in it where it feels like a surrogate live stage. Do you know what I mean? There's a little element
of it.
Kind of. So that was like so kind of, and I always think from the second I made my first euro on it, I was like, oh my God, this is worth more than €1,000 from an employed job. I looked at that as like, that's so much more exciting. Do you know what I mean? So I really got a kick from and it was also, it's like, I made this from my own brain. I was like, I created the name, I created the stream. I made this from my own brain. It wasn't like, you know, I got a job somewhere. It's like, this euro is the euro I got or whatever. So there was always a real kick out of that.
That's so cool.
And I know I'm talking very much so, like, you know, when we're talking creative, I'm speaking particularly from my point of view at the moment, which is a love and a passion for it, but also job side of it. So, you know, I kind of focus on those elements too. But yeah, so like, and then being a therapist in Ireland was so difficult. We do not have we have a beautiful country with beautiful people. We've just a fucking terrible fucking government of different stuff, you know. So it's like mental health here in terms of the money and the budget that's put away for it is ridiculous. There's 6-year waiting list for people to see people, and I was working in my own practice, and I was paying out rent, I was paying out insurance, I was paying out for my materials, I was paying out for my own therapy and my own therapy supervision, and then depending on the system, you know, sometimes if I was working with kids or adults, you know, they might not show up. It was a huge money drain. It was a huge stress. And then over COVID happened, you know, we couldn't do anything. So COVID was really the catalyst to being like, okay, and everyone and their granny started streaming in COVID. Yeah. But that was kind of like when I started doing it. And then my stream was dying. Like I was pretty sure I was kind of like, I went from my numbers were dipping and dipping and dipping and dipping like hugely.
Oh, yeah?
So I was like, fuck, I'm fucking like really shagged here. No, I wasn't doing it for money at that stage. Like it wasn't like my full-time job, if you know what I mean. But it was like, it's what I was focusing on though, because it was COVID. And I was like, fuck, why does it keep getting worse? And I was like, fuck it, double or nothing. I said, do the next 3 months and I'll double my time. I'll go from 2 hours a day to 5 hours a day. Yeah. And if it doesn't work out, I won't do it. And thankfully it worked out. So it was definitely a moment of like, I'm not doing this anymore. Because I was putting my heart and soul into it as always you should do with anything you're passionate about. But I was like, you know, I need to scale this back, you know, and you have a moment in a real talk with yourself where like, I need to stop doing this, you know, if it's going in a downward spiral, and then if that downward spiral is affecting me like emotionally, you know. So I think I was like, double it or nothing, try it for a couple of months, see how it goes. And thankfully then it started picking up again. Cool. Even though I'd still be a very small streamer, like, but enough that eventually then a year later from deciding that decision, I could pay my rent with it, you know? Yeah. Which was a nice hobby, which was nice to take a hobby, something that you love doing in a community you love hang out with, and then getting to do that.
Like, look, man, you are living the dream. You are doing what you love, and you are getting paid to do that.
Absolutely, like from the generous of people, you know, it's always like a struggling artist game, but like every day I get to do this and just pay my bills, like just scrape by is the dream. And I was saying that as well before, like it's a case of like, you know, any day I get to do what I love doing makes me happy. It's the dream. At the end of the day, I can't take any money away with me when I die. If I can, and obviously if I can't get enough to afford what I need to do, I need to obviously reconsider that as well. But every day you get to do what you love doing. It's an absolute blessing, and if it ends, it was still a dream and a blessing that you got to do it for the time you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. It's I just think it's so cool, and I'm not like, I know I'm kind of asking you questions, and I might seem like I'm blowing smoke up your arse just because me and you are friends, but I can tell you honestly from being just a viewer before we started talking that I really enjoyed the stream. I often said and still think you're my favourite streamer to watch, and it's just through sheer luck. It's just through sheer luck on my part that me and you started the podcast and became friends and went down that route. So it's really cool, man. I think it's interesting to get that kind of that insight and that background onto streaming, the platforms, how you started your community, and yeah, again, it's nice to kind of take a look behind the curtain a little bit. And I know this is very different to our normal style, but I'm really just enjoying the conversation. It's nice to have the kind of chilled out conversation, because look, like I love every other episode we do, but I just think it's nice and it's interesting for me, and I think that's what us creating this podcast as a creative outlet for me and you, it has to be interesting. We have to do episodes for us. Like, so I said at the start, initially we were doing a Nintendo GameCube episode, and
which talks about the creative process of how that came about as well, because it was like, because I think we were talking about doing it, but then we were talking about the art of being bored. Yes, which is an episode we'll be doing. Yeah, but it kind of came hand in hand though, because we're talking about like when you're bored you get creative, right? And we were saying there's such an importance in being bored, and you were talking about how like recently for the first time in your life you were feeling bored
because I was waiting for Dragon Ball. I was waiting to watch Dragon Ball. We're bringing it all back to Dragon Ball now.
But it was like that was such that's such an interesting aspect of it, because it was like, and you're like, I can't remember the last time this happened, because you didn't want to play games, because the thing you wanted, because you know you were purposely doing it old school, where you're like, you're getting the DVDs, you'll watch the DVDs on your DVD player, and then you'll order the new saga and wait for it to create a sense of, because there's a really good reward system in your brain when you actually when you have impulse control about things, and you try and say, well, I'm going to wait for this the way I want to wait for it, and then enjoy it when I can enjoy it. But when you're bored, you like quite often as a kid, like being bored, like we have so many distractions now. It's crazy, right? We have so much like social media, with so much Netflix. I'm not an old man preaching about it. I'm just saying this is objectively true, that we do not allow ourselves to be bored anymore. And some of the most important self-awareness and discoveries. The real reason people need therapy more than ever too is because we don't sit with ourselves more. We don't know what our feelings are, because when we feel anxious or we feel something, we're like on my phone. Like I like it's like I'm sitting there like on my phone, I'll scroll, and we're all guilty of it. I'm not saying like it's not a preaching stance. It's just objectively true that like not having boredom, not having time to sit with yourself, not having time to, you know, feel what's going on for you, or being so bored that you're like, how many times I remember being bored and then like I'm going to start something. Like that arcade consoles as a kid started from being bored. Right? We have nothing to do. It's all summer. Fuck, we're going to start a TV show. You know what I mean? Same way with us sweet summer children starting a podcast in a way. You were like, I have no podcast to listen to. I'm fucking bored. And from you being bored and having no podcast to listen to, we started our own bloody podcast. You know what I mean?
That's true, yeah. That's fucking crazy, man. It is. It's fucking crazy. Like, I think that the way me and you, it's like, you know, when someone asks a couple, how did you meet?
Yeah, but
I really like how I literally was looking for a podcast. I wanted a retro gaming podcast to listen to, and I've mentioned this before. We talked about it during the live podcast, but I kind of just put it out there. Does anyone have any recommendations? And I got some recommendations, and I've listened to the podcast and I enjoyed those. But it was when you had messaged me and were like, "What are we doing?" I was like, "Fuck it, why not? Let's just go for it." Like,
yeah, but because it's interesting, like, I think there was like just a right time and a right place for that too. Where like, you know, obviously I saw the story, and then. Because we were talking in the last episode how you're like, do you ever think we'd get to like, you know, how many of our episodes? Like, no. Like, because then, you know, because we didn't know what we were going to do when we started it. And that's the real important thing as well. Like, we did this for the love of it. We didn't do it. And this is what I mean. I think when you're doing something creative, you have to do it because you want to do it for nothing else. It has to just be for you. If it turns into a job, great. But like, I actually think, and I'm going to make a statement here, I do not think you can do something passionately that you love doing and need to have it as a job day one, or you need to get money from it, because I don't think that's fundamentally possible from a creative point of view, because you want to do it because you'll be constantly like, what works? You're like, I better make something that works because I want to make money from it, rather than being like you and me, like, we're going to do an episode on top 10 sexiest video game characters. you know what I mean? You have to birth it from, and also being creative is to give back to yourself, and that's like something. So I'm trying to like make something tangible in words about needing to do something. I
know what you mean.
Purely for the artistry's sake of it when you're starting.
Yeah. Now I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. I totally get what you're saying about like try and get into things for the joy, because it's always like, you know, sometimes someone would message, say, me on Instagram and be like, you know, I'm thinking about setting up a retro gaming Instagram page or whatever. What, like, do you have any advice? What should I post?
This is a great topic of conversation. You know, like the because people ask this all the time. It's like, what do I do if I want 10,000 followers? I'm like, well, the first thing you want to do is say you don't want 10,000 followers, because what does that mean? What is the purpose of that? Like,
I think
that's something you need to, like, you know, be self-aware and go to therapy about of why you want that. Do you know what I mean? It's a great thing to have feedback that people are enjoying your stuff.
Of course.
But yeah.
Well, I think basically my thoughts on it are, so if you're starting a Twitch channel, and this is just my thoughts on it, I'm not saying this is right or wrong.
You could even go anything gaming related. It could be podcast related. It could be whatever, right?
Should, or as a creative outlet, this is just my opinion, but I think the way I would go about things and have gone about things is, I've just picked something that I was passionate about and I enjoyed, and I just started, like, I just made an Instagram account and started posting pictures. I was following people that I enjoyed, I saw what they were doing, thought it looked fun, and I said, fuck it, I'll just join in and start doing it. And then I know with regards, like, I was thinking of creating a podcast. I think it's so funny to think of, I was thinking of creating a podcast myself, and then when you asked me, and it would have been shit, right? Compared to, well, like, I love our podcast, and I think we have so much fun, and I'm so proud of it, and every time we put an episode out, I am genuinely proud of the work we put in, because we do put, I know we laugh and we joke, and we are fucking chaotic at times, but we put a lot of effort in. We do take things seriously in the background. But my idea of a podcast was just like, would have been just me heavily scripted reading about, like, say, the history of something, because I love, one of my favorite YouTubers is called The Gaming Historian, and he tells the story of very niche things in video games, and I fucking adore it. And I would have done, that would have been the route that I would went down, because I would never have had the kind of the style of entertaining that I think me and you have on my own.
Yeah,
you know?
Of course.
Like,
I mean,
the way you are on the stream, you bring that out in me. I don't know. Maybe I'm like that with my friends, but
sure,
not in an online thing. And do you know what's funny, man? I was looking at my, on your stories on Instagram, and it tells you from like 3 years ago, 6 years ago, and I always wanted to do video. Like, I tried YouTube, and I'm very somber in those videos. I just sit down, I talk. I'm not, it was a confidence thing. I didn't have that confidence thing, and I saw a video pop up of me replying to a story on Instagram, and I can remember that, man, because I wanted so much to put myself out there as a person, not just a retro gamer or like
as a
personality.
As
a personality.
Yeah, as a personality. I totally get that.
Yeah, and the video is me just being like, because I had no confidence in myself.
Yeah, it takes a while to find your voice though when you're speaking out to people.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was very monotone. And now I think back to fucking the last episode of me laughing straight for half an hour, and just we do what we want.
Well, I mean,
it's cool.
No matter what, like, introduce someone else into the element is going to change the chemistry of something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like, that was the, like, when we did our first episode, like, that was the trial run of that. Like, what is our chemistry? Do you know what I mean? Like, what it creatively is going to happen when you put the two of us in a space together. And it was generally just like, and it was kind of perfect for the podcast, because the podcast is about going back to nostalgia and feeling like that childhood joy. And we ended up being kids. Do you know what I mean? We ended up being fucking like two like 12-year-olds giggling like fucking old women at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It's like somewhere across between two old women nattering and 12-year-olds giggling. It's like somewhere a mix in between the two.
Two Benjamin Buttons.
Yeah. We're just constantly like like going older and younger every 2 seconds.
Oh. But it's cool, man. It's cool.
But the other aspect of that then, right, is like, when you're finding your voice, you need to have some authenticity around who you are. Because we all have masks and we all have different portrayals. And like, we'll all have like, for stream, I'll be a little bit more energetic. But that like naturally comes into my play to do it, right? It's not like I'm trying to... Like, before, I remember having kind of like a little bit of an identity crisis when I was growing up, in terms of the fact, the sense that like sometimes I think people see me in a certain way that I have to be high energy. And if I wasn't, they were like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there'd be like little things with that. And I remember this is when I was like growing up and stuff like that. And then like, because there was probably a stage then where I felt like, I had to be that way or people would think something was wrong. Do you know what I mean? And then like settling in as you get older and understanding that like, we all like, you just have different vibes for different occasions and different places and different contexts. And sometimes you need to be more introvert and extrovert, or what feels good to you based on the scenario. But I think when you're creating something, there has to be like an authenticity into what you're putting in. And when, like, you're talking about finding your voice and how like from back then to now, and now you're like, what your voice is. Like when we're doing the live podcast, like you were fucking taking over the place. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's that kind of, you find that and your confidence in it. But I definitely think, like, if you go, it's like, I want to be the next Dr. Disrespect, and you decide to dress just like him, and you decide to, like, copy his personality, that's going to lead you down a path of bad creativity, probably, like, anxiety and depression as well, because, you're not...
Be met with animosity if that's your style, maybe.
I'm
talking to him specifically, because doesn't he agitate people or something? Is that his...
I'm ignoring that aspect. I'm ignoring whatever he does. Sorry. What I'm saying is, like, you'll have animosity with yourself because you're pretending to be something you're not, and it's going to cause a discourse inside you. It's going to cause a physical discourse inside you, like, so. Yeah. And then creating is supposed to be a part of you. When you're creating, you're literally putting a part of yourself into something. And if you're making something up completely, like, you can have characters, but characters are part of you too. So, if someone who has a character as a stream person, there's still something of them in them. But if you're taking someone else's thing, I think you really have to find... You can be inspired, and people are inspired all the times. And I was inspired by, like, Game Grumps and Oni Plays and different channels. But I think you really have to find your voice, and you have to love what you want, and you have to be passionate about it, and you have to do it because you love it and for no other reason. And then as a byproduct of that, if it turns into something fantastic, but that's not the reason you set out to do it,
just for the love of it. And
For the love of
yeah, I totally get it. And actually, so we've kind of I realized at the start of the conversation we've kind of come full circle, because what I said when we were talking about this episode, we were going to do a Nintendo GameCube episode, and then this idea came up, and I was like, oh, but I want, and like,
yeah, no, this is interesting.
This is an honest thought into how I want
the creative process
for the podcast as well. Like, I was like, I want to have a nice, well-rounded season that I think, we had our old school stories, video games, maybe nostalgia story, video games, but having a kind of every other one, and having a bit of, like, even if you say, for instance, you look at my Instagram, I have a pattern of how I post now that I've adopted in the last 2 years. I don't post very often, but I'll have, there'll be a specific pattern. You can look, I won't say what it is, but if you look, you might be able to see a certain type of post, and it's only every X amount, and I like it that way, and it's nice. But I was like, because I think people will want to hear another video game podcast, but then the last podcast is already up there with one of the most played, and that was not necessarily to do with video games. It's about nostalgia. And then it wasn't until me and you had a conversation, and I think you were like, well, this is what we want to do, so let's do this for us, not. And again, like, I love creating for people to listen, but we create because it's what we love doing. It's topics that we want to talk about.
There, you have to have your peaks and valleys and pacing too, right? Like, not everything can be a fucking banger, because like, it's, if everything's a banger, nothing's a banger.
True.
Do you know what I mean? It's the classic, like, you're there's no such thing as happiness if you're never sad, and I, like, so it's like, there has to be like kind of a flow of, like, because my thing on it was like, dude, if we're excited about talking about creativity and why we create and why we do, like, be in the flow state for that. If that's what's getting you inspired for the conversation, let's do that conversation, because strike while the iron's hot, and like, get it in there, because that's not going to be every week. We're going to be, and then we'll go back to, we have 60 episode ideas that we want to do, and with a bit of luck and a bit of support, like, hopefully, we can do this podcast for many years to come. So like, there's there'll be a point. I think the idea of, like, we need to do these episodes is almost like a finite feeling, it's like, oh, like, if we don't get these done, then, like, we don't do another season, like, it kind of goes into that. And I think also by picking, there's a really interesting thing about being creatively stuck too, because you think, I'm supposed to do something, and now this isn't making me happy anymore. It's kind of like when you're looking at your Instagram things, like, I think I should have this by this by this by this, and it's almost like a coping mechanism that doesn't work anymore. Like, what worked for you once then starts to, like,
it clearly doesn't work on Instagram.
Well,
but it's just something I enjoy, and that's the way I do it.
No, totally. But it's like, there's many times I become more self-aware when I'm getting jaded by something. So like, I become more self-aware when I'm like when something worked last week and then it doesn't work for 3 weeks afterwards, and I keep doing it because I think that's what people. Because there's one day, but you can't recreate creativity.
Yeah.
Creativity has to be just what you're doing in the moment. You know what I mean? You can't you're like, I made this dog painting last week and everyone loved it, so I'm going to keep painting that same dog for 10 years. And then you end up fucking like, well, I'm depressed now because I drew the same dog for 10 years. You know what I mean?
True.
Tell me about this podcast though. I want to ask you because I want to ask you kind of briefly within it. Like, what, because you've explained to me that, like, because I know what it's like to do photos on Instagram. And I know why you wanted to put yourself out there as well, because you take these photos of something and you're like, oh, this looks nice. But you almost feel like you too are the viewer when you're taking those photos. You feel like you're almost like, it's like, I am also a person who's just like watching the photos. I'm not creating them in a way. So I know that kind of vibe of wanting to, kind of put yourself out there, because particularly when you amass certain people who enjoy it, you're like, oh, I wonder, will they like me?
Yeah.
Or is it like, is it the personality a part of it, or is it just the pictures, So then, and then you said you did the YouTube for a bit, which was kind of like a bit, what was that like for you? What was the YouTube videos like?
Yeah, it was fine, man. I was just experimenting, I just sat down in front of the camera and picked a topic that I wanted to talk about, and I talked about it, and I did it all in one take. I didn't have cut because I don't know how to edit video. So I just sat down and it was nice, but it was fun and I got a nice response, but I could never have seen it like taken off or anything like that. but I enjoyed it. The only thing for me was it came at a time when my daughter came into this world, and it was purely a time thing. Obviously I'm going to prioritize my child over everything else, and that happened. And
speaking of creativity, baby,
baby indeed, and like, so when that happened, then I just kind of stopped doing it. Like, I was having fun doing it, and it was a cool process. Again, I never saw anything coming of it, but I was enjoying doing it as something creative, because I was kind of in a funk. You know, I've always done something. Like, I was in a band for years, and I get gigs, like multiple gigs every week for years and years and years, and I was into Muay Thai or Thai boxing for years, and I did that for a long time and had a few fights, and it was always fun. I've always kind of done something. You know, I went to college for a few years doing my holistic therapies. I've always been doing something, and then Instagram was good fun, and then Instagram died as a platform for me anyway, or it died. And
for me too.
But I kept doing it, man. Like, it has.
Yeah,
but again, it's because I enjoy it. I don't look at it as a job. I don't try to be an influencer. I'm not trying to be that kind of a person, and that's just me. I have, but I still enjoy it. There's a nice community over there. I don't try and have a community for my page. I'm part of the retro gaming community of loads of people, which I enjoyed. But this podcast, I think, is the first time I've ever had a community that, like, we have a Discord. People talk in the Discord.
I remember even just setting up the Discord, because like Discord was kind of alien to you as well, because I was familiar with it with Twitch, but I was like, Discord really is the home of the homes, because it's like it is your village away, which is a good segue. Go follow the Discord. But the Discord is one of those things where it's like, again, the podcast is the community. We're not Spotify. You know what I mean? We're Press A Button to Continue is the community. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
fucking hell, man. See, I'm just not. I'm looking out the window from a different angle here and seeing things from a different perspective, and it's strange. It's sometimes when someone says it and it clicks at you, you're like, fuck, that's so true, man. I haven't thought about it like that before.
And that's why Discord's like a nice way to have it. So if tomorrow we're like, here lads, and this is something I've been learning since I've been kind of, taking more risks and stuff like that, that it's like, if tomorrow we were like, lads, we're actually exclusively on Apple Podcasts now, whatever, you'd be surprised the amount of like people who would be like, oh, okay, do you know what I mean? Like, that's fair enough if that's what you need to do. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, we're doing it. We're working for the people who listen to us and us. We're not working for Spotify or whatever. Do you know what I mean? We're doing it for us, and we're doing it for the people who enjoy listening to it. And again, I think it's like, if you ended up doing something creatively and you loved it, and then you did it for a job and you love it, and there's a point where you hate it, and even if you're still making money, I think you should fucking stop it. Do you know what I mean? I think, like, obviously, and then it's hard too, because it's like there's realities as well where we all have responsibilities and we have families, and like, I understand too. I'm not saying for a second, because I sometimes I think I make it sound like a fucking like an easy thing to do what you want to do, because it's not. Because sometimes you need to be in the job you're doing, whether even if you hate it, because like, you need to make money to fucking have food and a roof over your head, and they're all barriers to creativity, obviously, as well.
True.
But speaking, doing a podcast and what we're doing, and it's like, because I am curious, because like, obviously the podcast is like something that gives us great joy and great satisfaction, or else we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a creative outlet, it is the most proud I've been of anything that I've ever put out there in a creative sense. And I'm obsessed, which you might realise when you wake up and you have 5 voicemails and 10 pictures of me being like, there's this idea,
10 pictures of my dick.
And like, but it's just, I love it, man. I fucking love it, and it's so nice that people are enjoying it as well. I think that's a really cool thing. But I love the conversations that me and you have. The last year of making episodes, the going down to Cork to hang out with you and meet your partner, and you coming up here and meeting my partner and my daughter, and having a fucking live thing. And I keep going on about the live thing, but it's something I'm very proud of.
There's something
I
want to say about that as well, is I thought was really, really thing that you said to me was like, because you were at Gamerfest a few years before, right? Yeah. And obviously you were, doing your bits and bobs, but I think this year you were saying it's the first year where you felt really... sorry, I'm really paraphrasing here, so you tell me what you said and I'll tell you what I kind of remember. And you were kind of saying this the first year you really feel kind of like at home there, because you finally feel like a creator.
Yeah, no, that's true. I have been at loads of gaming conventions as a guest through being Retro Gamer Ireland and my Instagram page
And the popularity
and
that kind of drummed up.
Yeah, but for some
Back
reason
in 1976.
yeah. But for some reason, I always just felt like almost like I was an imposter, and it was like, but these people are streaming on Twitch and they're putting all this work in, and these people are making YouTube videos and they're putting all this work in, and I'm not that I'm just taking a picture, you know, there's thought into it and you design it and you put it your way, and I love the Instagram thing, and I still use it even though it's not something that's what would you say?
It's for you.
It doesn't like it's just an activity I enjoy. There's a great community of people over there. But yeah, it was the first time that I went to a convention and felt like, I don't want to say that I deserved to be there as it was the first time that I went to a convention that I felt like I'm bringing something there that I'm proud of and that I'm okay to promote and put out there and talk about. You know what I mean? Whereas if someone came over and were like, oh, you know, I follow your Instagram page, I'll be kind of like, oh, cool, thanks very much. But what else do I talk about then? Whereas if this, they're like, oh, I listen to the podcast, I'm like, what's your favourite episode? Tell me more. Are you gonna come over and watch live?
Come over to my house. Come over to my house. No, I'll fucking kill you.
But it's just something that, again, as a creative outlet, I'm so proud of it. You know, I've done things like the band I was in. I fucking loved that era of my life. But as I was a performer, they had written. I basically joined a band when they were on their third album that was written, and I was performing. And now I can't say anything.
You were like
negative.
a session musician, kind of in a way.
But not as good as a session musician. but
in terms of the creativity of the self-satisfaction, you were kind of playing their music.
Yes. And people come up to me and say, you know, I love the album and I love the song, and I'm like, yeah, me too. And like, nothing ever bad, but this is something that I'm creating myself. Well, sorry, this is something that we are creating.
All right,
together.
Nisha Show, boy.
This is something that we are creating.
This is my podcast.
Hold on, let me say that again. Something that I am part of the creative process. This is yours and it's mine and it's totally ours. It's even, and it's the first time that I've been a part of something like that. I think that's why I love it. That's part of why I love it.
No,
so
I'm
much.
the same, like, because I'm so super proud of it as well. And like, I love it too, because I love that we get to do it together. Like, that's definitely an aspect of it that's kind of primed to it, you know. And it does feel like I don't think this podcast can exist without the other person. Like, I don't think if any one of us were like, look, we just can't do it anymore because of a reason, I don't think it can really exist without the other person. Do you know what I mean? I think that's just the end of it at that point, right? Yeah. Not that there's any plans of that, by the way. I'm just saying as a story.
I'm nothing without you.
But I also we just have a scene like in the rain where you're like on my knees or whatever, you know, like a whole
standing outside your window with a boombox in the rain.
Here's the time of my life. But I also think what's very important is I don't think this could have been done at an earlier stage of our lives, because you talk about almost feeling like the imposter syndrome of, because there's a lot of personal growth when you're creating and going through different phases, and especially when you're working with someone else creatively, because that can be a very, you know, interesting thing to navigate. And you know, but I think like the age where we're at in terms of our own voices and discovery and confidence, and then having pride in putting the confidence out there, and actually like the fact that we respect what we've made and we're proud of what we made is so important. Then to bring something like that to a live show where, you know, you do feel for the first time then that like you have pride in it, and you know, you're happy to actually show it off. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
you're happy
100%.
to, you're like, you know, and it's like, no, I'm confident in myself and who I am, and we're confident in who we are as a team. That, you know, and then we're confident in what we bring out and the community that's evolved around it, that then, you know, so I think it's like the right time and right place. I don't think if we did this like, you know, 8 years ago, you know, it might be a very different beast. Do you know what I mean?
Know, from my aspect, it definitely would, because I'm totally very, very different person.
Now
than I am then, and it's like you said, it's a time in our life where it's working. Perfect.
It's like, you know, it's like you're 13 again. I don't know. It's like I'm in a good place in my life in general. I think, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, and I think when you create, since it's a part of you, there's always, you know, it reflects that time and place as well. So I think from that point of view, you know, it's like, and getting to do the live show is just such a staple of, like, as you said, you know, that's like a super proud moment, because it's like, it's also that the ideas where you get to have, because you need to have those moments too to reflect on what you make and be like, oh my god, we got to do this version of it, and like, you know, in the time you get to do it. So yeah, there's all that stuff, and I think it's so interesting as well getting to know each other when we were doing all the episodes. Like I think if you binge the episodes through, and I know there's some people listening now, like someone came up to me and streamed the other day, said, "Oh, am I on the Halloween episode?" And I'm like,
Deadly.
that's what, like, that's very
Deadly.
cool, right?
That's
Because
so
it's
cool.
like, it has a body of work. That's something
Yeah.
very different for me actually, which is really
Right.
nice that there's a body of work, because everything I do is live on stream. So there's no remnants of it. There's clips and there's videos I'll edit together, but there's no survival. Like, you know, if you have like one of the funniest days of your life on stream, it exists in a time and a place, which also
True,
has its
yeah.
own specialness about it.
Yes.
But it's a very different vibe. So this does fulfill another creative aspect of like creating, you know, kind of eternal content, you know, where
Yeah.
like there's a bit of a, it's like, you know, kind of like YouTube in a way, like people can go back, and now people are discovering it for the first time, you know, because obviously you get way more interaction in a live setting with your community in the moment. When someone new comes in, they obviously, if there's like, you know, I have such an established space that they feel like, oh, they have to kind of get to know everyone, but with a podcast they can go and listen to it in their own time and get to know us.
Yeah.
So there's very interesting aspects of that kind of creativity as well.
Jesus, man, this has been like I wasn't expecting the conversation to go the way it's went when we were talking about creativity. I was thinking something totally different, but I think it was a really nice conversation. Although it might seem like I was just blowing smoke up your hole the whole time, but again, anything I said was genuine and was honest.
My hole deserves as much smoke blown up it as the next person, alright? Fucking from time to time, you need to get the furnace, you need to spread my depravity cavity and just fuck the steam up there. I want to be like a hot air balloon flying into the sky, smoke blowing up my rectals.
There's the usual press any button to continue. But yes, man, no, this has actually been a really this has been a very interesting conversation for me anyway to have. It's totally different to our usual style of podcast, because I suppose usually when we're talking about something, I'd have like a plan of ideas and notes, and like, you
It's
know,
a little bit like a
topic where
long
it's-
format retro ramblings.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But it's because it's like I'm thinking about stuff and it's just coming to me as I'm saying it. You know what I mean, about the whole creative process, because it's not something that I would think about too much. I wouldn't delve into it too much. And I suppose it's like the same with any creators. And actually, now that I think about it, I always love when people do, say, if, you know, I'm watching a YouTuber or something, and they'll do like a behind the scenes, even like their own setup videos, and talk about how they create. I've actually always really enjoyed those particular episodes of whoever it is, and I think it's funny now that we're doing one, and I'm just enjoying it just as much. Like,
Well, it creates a very different headspace, because all of a sudden you're going into more of a feeling analytical. Well, not analytical is the wrong word, more of a feeling space, because you're like, what is it? What are the feelings I get when I do something, and why do I do it, and why do I need to do it? Where when you're talking about something like a GameCube episode, you're talking about your love for it, so you get a different.
True.
It's a different vibe, right? So like you're getting excited about the love for something, but we're like going into a deep thought kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, very true. Tell me this: are there any YouTubers, streamers, artists, even doesn't have to be in the video game world?
Ooh, actually, I have. That's like interesting, because I know what you're gonna ask me. Who do I like? Who do I like? Who do I like?
Who has inspired you, and who do you like?
Who do I like? So I'm going to give you like a kind of a 180 on it, and I want to give you some things outside of video games, art-wise, that I enjoy, to give you more of a flavour of who I am. And, you know, when people are listening to this, they might discover these people and be like, oh, that's class.
Yeah, cool.
So there's kind of two singer-songwriters that I love. One is a guy called Josh Ritter.
Yeah.
And he's like, he writes books and he does paintings as well. But he's like his lyrics are very poetic, I find, and he tells stories in a loving way. And I think that type of creativity really sparks motivation in me. Do you know, he has a way of painting images with his words and his music.
Cool. Nice.
And you can check out, there's a song he has called The Curse, which I'd look up Josh Ritter, The Curse, if you want something. It's kind of a slow melodic piano piece, and it's about a story about an archaeologist and a mummy falling in love.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. So there's that kind of stuff. There's a guy called Mick Flannery as well, who's an Irish singer-songwriter, who is kind of he has music that's good for the soul. It's like the way he says himself, bad for the heart, good for the soul. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like espresso, depresso music, but it's like, it's really kind of, you know, when you're in the form for it, it's great.
Yeah.
Which I love. Robbie Williams as an entertainer has always been someone I've taken cues of, like even when I'm doing my karaoke and live stuff today, like the way he expresses himself and the confidence he does, even though he's not the best singer in the world, is something that made me sing, because I'm not a good singer, but it's like, it's one of those. Well, thank you. But it's like, you know, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, it's all about the energy you're putting in. And if you're putting in a good energy, and if you're giving a good vibe back, you know, and people are smiling, who cares what it is if people are smiling? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
So there's that kind of element of it that I love. Yeah, they're the ones that are kind of coming to my mind from kind of a music point of view. So check them out. I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give recommendations. Check out The Curse by Josh Ritter. Cool. Check out Safety Rope by Mick Flannery. They're actually two depressing kind of piano songs, so enjoy that for your sleep. And then for a crack, if you want to get to know me, Robbie Williams, Let Me Entertain You.
Oh,
hell is gone and heaven's here. There's nothing left for you to fear.
What a video as well.
And look, I will say the Game Grumps were a huge kind of influence in some of the kind of comedy elements of me developing my own voice. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. There's animes that I could go into. We need to do like an anime episode. Obviously, Dragon Ball Z is huge for me for drawing and art and getting into it. I got into drawing because of Dragon Ball Z. I wouldn't have been an art therapist without Dragon Ball Z. Yeah. So, you know, there's that kind of stuff as well.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
What about you?
I just want to say I would love to do a Dragon Ball Z episode.
Because we keep talking about it. I mean, it seems to be coming out.
I feel like I have to wait until. So when I finish watching Dragon Ball Z, we will then do a dedicated just to the anime. Doesn't have to be about video games, because I just want to talk about it, but I can't now because for the people who don't know, I'm watching Dragon Ball Z for the first time ever. I have no clue.
It's amazing. He said to me the other day, if you can believe this, he's like, there's some lad called Frieza? And I'm like, lol, oh my God, this is so great. I'm like, you are literally... I keep texting him as well, because I'm like a dad watching his kid watch his favourite show for the first time. So I'm like, did you watch more? You said you were going to watch more and then you fell asleep last night. I was like, fucking no. So I'm like living through him, because I remember being a kid and being excited every week, every day watching the episodes and being like, oh my God. And you're like that now, because... I don't know how you managed to avoid the pop culture phenomenon that is Dragon Ball Z, but I'm so happy you're experiencing it more or less, raw dogging it for the first time, you know?
I fucking love it so much. So we will do one. But I suppose people who influence me, if you want to talk about music, the biggest and like the only person who comes to mind, honestly, when I think of an influence in music is Phil Lynott, who was the lead singer for Thin Lizzy, who are my favourite band. His style of bass playing, like I was a bass player when I was in a band, and I
need to hear you play bass, dude.
He has, I will next time where you come up, I'll play a bit of bass. I'll show you.
It's your turn to come down to me next, mate.
Well, I'm going to recommend a song, right? If you want to listen to the band that I was in, and I didn't write this song, so I'm not just trying to promote my.
But are you playing bass in the song?
No. So this is totally.
But will you give us one that you are playing bass into, because people want that?
Because there's none. We talked about this. There's none. Or actually, there is a few, but I don't know if.
There's none on Spotify, is it?
No. But if you go onto YouTube and type in The Juice, Ella Fontaine is the name of the song, and that's a band that I was in for years. And I love them, and I love the music, and they actually influenced me while I was getting to know them, because when they asked me to join the band, I was like, I'm shit and yous are dead, and I had no confidence, and they
Imposter syndrome, man.
They totally brought me with them, man, and they moulded me, and it was great. But musically, Phil Lynott, I fucking love.
What would be your favourite song by him?
There's so many, man. There's so many.
Give us 3.
Just Waiting for an Alibi, Dancing in the Moonlight, The Rocker, Fighting, Black Rose, Jailbreak.
Do you know what
I
love?
So many, man.
Is it Old Town?
Yeah.
I really like that for some reason.
Yeah. I think that's Phil in its solo career.
Yeah, it is. This boy is cracking up. This boy has broke down.
Yeah, so good. But if I'm talking about video games, the first YouTuber I ever really got into, when I actually got into retro video games, was a guy called, his YouTube channel is Nintendo Collecting. It used to be called Lithium 017 was his first name. Then he changed to Nintendo Collecting, and he has one of the most incredible game collections I've ever seen in my entire life. He has all these the GameCubes he has all boxed, all these really rare ones. He has this like Gundam Chars something red.
Yes, I know
Nintendo
the one.
GameCube. It's
But does he have a
fucking sick.
Does he have Pokemon Stadium N64 Nisha?
I think he does, yeah.
You can fucking, I doubt it, to be honest with you.
But he released a series called Retro or Collecting Tips 101, and it was when I was just getting into retro video and collecting, or retro video games in general. And it's literally 101 videos of, you know, him giving advice on retro video games and stuff. And I binged them all. I've watched them multiple times. So much fun. So he was the first kind of guy that I really got into, and I still love his channel. He doesn't post as much, but he just seems like a very nice guy. You know
It's
what I
the
mean?
same.
Seems
It's
like
the
a very
same
cool
when it comes to, like, you know, the voices of Game Grumps and stuff. I watch them going to bed because it's like their voices are so ingrained in my head that it's like very calming. It's like, you know, it's you're returning to a safe place when you find a creator. And I hear that sometimes, which is like some of the nicest compliments I get, which is like, you know, oh, I fall asleep to your stream sometimes, you know, just to have your voice on in the background.
That's
I can go
so
for a
cool,
nap,
man.
and, you know, like
That's
stuff
so
like
nice.
that, you know. Or like, you know, it calms me down or whatever, you know. It's like it's nice to when you get that feedback as well. And we get feedback with the podcast too. I mean, there's so many people
100%.
you know, such nice things. And even to get, like, you know, you were kind of saying as well, like, you know, when you get your first Patreon supporter, that was your first monetary creative thing, right?
Yeah, it was
And so
crazy.
so that kind of, like, you almost want to frame that, you know what I mean?
yeah. It was just really, like, I was shocked because, like,
the fact that someone likes something enough that they actually want to do that, you know, not that we're pushing it or anything, but there's like, no, we want to, like, you know.
No, it was really nice. Now I have to say, I was like really like, oh my god, I actually can't believe, because again, like, we didn't just set up a Patreon as soon as we started the podcast. That wasn't the goal. It was just, let's make the podcast, and then eventually it just became a thing.
20 episodes before that happened.
When somebody actually what would you say, subscribed to the Patreon, whatever it was, I was just like, fucking hell. And then a few more people came on, and I was like, geez, this is just really nice, man. Just a nice thing, I think, for people to show their support in another way. Anyway, people listen, share, talk, you know, recommend to a friend. Anyway, people support podcasts, I think, is just incredible, especially small podcasts like us. We do it for the love of it, and I think it's really cool. And other ones, like, if like, I talked to you, Keith, about, I've told you how much I love the Blind Boy Boat Club podcast, the Blind Boy podcast. Like, I genuinely feel like, might sound outrageous, but I genuinely feel like I'm a better person for having listened to his podcast.
Yeah, of course.
And
well, it makes you reflect on yourself, and it makes you think, you know, that's like, of course.
Crazy.
And
like,
some of the best creations and being creative inspires others to do their own self-awareness journey and even create themselves. Like, the great thing about it is, like, a lot of people who go to therapy and, you know, have a really successful relationship with their therapist end up wanting to be therapists themselves sometimes. It's like, that's the knock-on effect and power of, like, a working relationship, like a creative relationship, you know, a piece of art, like, you know, can really make you reflect on yourself and want to be better, do better, or create yourself, you know? It's a muse.
Yeah, totally. It is. Oh, totally is a muse. And one person I think I feel like I want to mention as a creator, because I just think it's really cool to have seen them. I don't know this person personally. I've never talked to them. I've never had any interaction with them. I've always just been a viewer outside. But I think to see them doing so well, coming from a country like ours, I think is really cool. And that's Sean Jacksepticeye, because I just think he's fucking hilarious. First of all, his videos, I remember the first video I ever watched was Super Mario Maker, and, like, I nearly fell off my chair laughing, man. It was just the funniest thing ever. And then I get into his videos.
He's a proud export of Ireland. Like, he's always been very, like, he does great charity work as well, and he's always been very honest about his own mental health journeys too. Very, very honest. Like, you know, kind of what he's going on. And I think when people tell their stories about their own struggles as well, it's very, like, motivating, you know, to know that you're not alone. And he's great for that. You know, like, outside his comedy, he does. I think he's probably inspires a lot too, and that's the great thing about making, right? Yeah. You're putting yourself into it. People see it, they see vulnerable sides, they see different sides, and then they're inspired or feel less isolated and alone themselves. And I think that's what great art does in general. And we might this might be a nice finisher. Yeah, but totally. I think great art makes you feel not alone. In general, do you know what I mean? I think as a thing, like, when you see something and you connect with it,
with that.
Yeah, because you're physically connecting with something. And I think once you create something and someone connects with it, it's like you realize all of a sudden, it's like, oh, if someone made this and it's resonating with me, that means there must be something similar going on, you know, in them, even if it's a completely unconscious kind of thing, do you know?
Yeah, true. Well, look, man, I'm happy enough to leave it there. I think that was a cool conversation. I enjoyed it. And
Yeah,
as
sure,
you
we'll
said
see.
before,
You'll be back
Yeah,
to your...
yeah.
Well, whether you did or whether you didn't enjoy it, you'll be back to your scheduled fucking shenanigans next week. And if you did enjoy this style of episode, yeah, we're gonna go.
Last time on Dragon Ball Z, Keith and Nisha tried to do the Kamehameha Kaioken times 10, but the Gallic gun of the Solar Flare and the Genkidama Special Beam Cannon. Will our heroes and our Z-Warriors be able to tackle the fermentous erection selection that is in front of them? Or will Bulma's big old titties get in the way again? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.